Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the Progress Channel. Today's video number 48 is porn bad for you? Now, I didn't really want to make this video, to be honest. I just don't really care a whole lot about this issue. I'll put it another way. There are a lot of other issues I care a lot more about. But porn use and porn downsides and upsides are a part of our intellectual space, especially in the manosphere or whatever, that's so riddled with just wildly erroneous assumptions assumed as fact that I had to say something. So I probably won't make a whole bunch more videos on this, arguably none, hopefully none. This video is going to be a little bit of a doozy, kind of a lot of stuff to say here, but I really kind of want to be thorough just to get you guys thinking about this kind of stuff. And the position I'll be taking is one you probably haven't heard of before. In this sort of area of the internet, male-dominated YouTube, you've probably heard a lot of other stuff. Let's see if we can upset the apple cart a little bit. So first, let's define porn. To me, porn is erotic media that turns you on. In most cases, it's designed to be supplemented by physical stimuli to help you orgasm. Looking at porn without nutting is a thing people do. I think it's strange and, well, maybe not strange. That's mean. Unusual. And in the modern context, it's most often videos, though of course back in the day it used to be magazines, etc. And I think in the near future, it's going to transition to VR as the primary modality and increasingly more and more immersive VR. An interesting idea about porn you don't hear very often, especially from people that are wildly against it, is that you make porn in your head anyway because fantasizing with visual imagery is the male's preferred way to fantasize. Even if the visuals are in your mind's eye, you're still making your own porn. And media-based porn is just one step removed from that. In other words, when you're J and the D in the shower, you're doing it to your own internally made porn anyway. So the difference between looking at porn and making it up in your own head is probably not night and day to begin with. And if people say like, well, you know, the bodies of the porn stars are really extreme in the videos or the sex acts are extreme, a lot of us have fantasies that are impossible to film with a consenting adult, etc. So I wouldn't go and say that media-driven porn is more extreme than the stuff in people's heads. That would be almost categorically false. And I think there's probably a bigger difference with psychological and sociological impact of jerking off in any capacity versus doing the deed with another person versus jerking off with just your own thoughts or your own thoughts supplemented by porn. I think the biggest difference is between just jerking off and doing it with someone else. And the difference between jerking off with porn and without porn, there are going to be some differences, but I think they're relatively minor. You rarely see that distinction drawn with anti-porn advocates for a variety of reasons. Most of these, just no offense, but a lot of these people have just a ton of feelings about the situation and not so many thoughts about the situation. All right. So this video is really designed to address the concerns over porn use. I have to say that statistically, and this is something that's uncontroversial, you can Google it anytime you want, the vast majority of people see no significant downsides in porn use. They just don't. If you're someone other than just an intellectually curious average person, if you are just an intellectually curious average person, rather, you're probably like, oh, porn's bad? It's news to me. Almost everyone you know probably uses porn, and almost all the people you know who use porn are totally normal dudes that just use porn. But high porn use, especially in some people, particularly in some individuals, correlates with the following variables that we should at least care about because they are research supported. I can count about, 8 of them that I'll discuss here. We're going to go through them really quick, and then I'll open them up much more deep. Yeah, there you go. There's your porn. I'll open them up in greater depth a little bit later to really kind of think them through a little bit. So number 1, Decreased sexual satisfaction. Men who frequently use pornography may experience lower sexual satisfaction, both personally and in their relationships. Okay. Next, higher rates of porn use are associated with issues like erectile dysfunction and decreased sexual performance, so basically impaired sexual functioning. Number 3, some studies suggest, and that's how you know it's an interesting claim. This is all from, not all, this part, the 8 parts are from ChatGPT summarizing the top downsides of porn. And it has read the vast majority of the internet. So it's by far the best place to kind of see what the average opinion on porn is, or the average opinion on porn downsides. So number 3 is some studies suggest that problematic use of porn is associated with greater feelings of loneliness and isolation. Number 4, increased porn can lead to conflicts within relationships, particularly concerning differing views on pornography consumption. Basically, like you like porn, but your girl hates it, that sort of thing. Number 5, men engaging in problematic porn use may show weakened commitment to their romantic partners. Interesting. Number 6 is negative self-perception. Frequent use of pornography, I'm quoting ChatGPT here, can correlate to negative self-perceptions and body image issues. But, really important point, correlate was my word that I inserted and replaced. The original ChatGPT word was frequent use of pornography can lead to negative self-perceptions and body image issues. That's how it was stated. Lead. Lead implies causation, I think. This is a big deal in wording and an ultra big problem in porn discussions that we'll talk about later. And that problem is looking at correlations and assuming the directionality of causation is clear. Number 7, mood disorders. Problematic porn use has been linked to higher instances of mood disorders, including depression and anxiety. And lastly, social withdrawal. In some cases, excessive pornography use can correlate with social withdrawal or reduced social activity. So if you're like many people who read this list or have it read to them in video by me, you're like, damn, dude, porn does a lot of fucking damage. And yeah, maybe it's only for 5% of people, but man, goddamn, it still does. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff. Maybe. But there is a big problem in porn research, and it is the causation versus correlation problem. What is that problem? In public discussions of porn, many people will say things like excessive porn consumption leads to XYZ bad thing, anxiety, isolation, you name it. All the stuff we just talked about. But the problem is that almost no porn research is causational. The studies are simply not designed to inspect causality. Almost all of it is correlational. This type of behavior correlates to higher porn use. Higher porn use is correlated to this kind of behavior being increased. So if someone says something like higher porn use causes more loneliness, you have to ask, is there a study or group of studies that demonstrates causation, that porn actually causes increased loneliness in this regard? And usually, almost always, the answer is no. There's correlation studies, but not causation studies. And then if you want to dig the hole a little deeper, you have to ask a few follow-up questions, specifically on porn and loneliness as the example. Does increased porn use increase loneliness? If so, by what plausible, even hypothetical mechanisms does this occur? They may be good answers to this, but these are good questions to ask. A simple candidate, just as a guess, just hypothesizing, is that getting heavy into porn means you go out less to try to get laid because you're getting laid in your own hand from a video screen, and that reduction in social interactions leads to more loneliness. Makes sense. Makes sense. Seems plausible. The second question you have to ask is, does increased loneliness cause increased porn use? Because remember, there's a correlation. You don't know which one causes the other. And if so, by what plausible hypothetical mechanism? I mean, this one's pretty easy. When real people aren't around to fuck you, you fuck yourself with porn. This is not rocket science. You're already lonely, and you still have a sex drive. So guess what fills in the blank? It ain't people. It's porn. Maybe that's the way it goes. Third question you have to ask, this is real bonus round, deep intellectual type of shit. Are increased porn use and loneliness simply correlated together with no causative effect on one or another in any direction? And if by so, what plausible mechanism, hypothetical, could that be? Simple candidate here is that genetic proclivities for ability and willingness to socialize, people who are like genetically just keep to themselves versus genetically really out there, can lead you to either getting laid more and being less lonely, because it's the getting out that's getting you laid and the getting out that's squashing your loneliness. And also, you just don't need as much porn because you're out there getting laid in real life a lot more, or getting laid less and being more lonely via less socialization. So you're not the kind of person naturally that likes to socialize a lot. You still have a sex drive. So because you don't socialize, your porn use is higher because you don't fuck real people. And also you're lonely because you don't get out much. But notice porn didn't cause one of those things. Neither loneliness nor porn caused each other. There was a central third variable, genetic proclivity to go socialize, that could maybe explain the relationship in its entirety. We would never have to posit a correlation one way or the other because it could be none. The real answers, and I give some hypotheses that you're just worth like the fucking toilet paper you wipe your ass with. The real answers to these questions would need causational research that is able to disentangle cause and effect. But before we have that research in high volumes, and there's no big project to try to do that research, by the way, the most logical explanations of cause and effect directionality are likely to explain more of the effect than less of the effect. To me, and I may be wrong about this, but in this example, it's much more likely to me that you being lonely makes you use more porn versus porn somehow by itself leading you to become more lonely. And I'll talk later about how that could happen. It just seems to me that like, if you ain't banging real people and you don't socialize, you're going to do more porn. If you're really social, you don't need porn as much because you bang real people and you're less lonely. If somehow getting into porn is making you much lonelier, there are ways that can happen. I'll talk about them in a little bit, but strains the imagination a little bit more than the other way around. And some of these relationships I'll talk about later, really there's like a, wow, this is probably what's going on and not this other thing. And lastly, a combination of explanations are likely involved to sum up the entire explanatory factor for the whole effect. So, for example, lonely people watch more porn because they have limited human contact. But once they get really heavy into porn and away from meeting real humans, they get even less human contact and consume even more porn and become even more lonely. Also, such people are more often genetically predisposed to prefer one-sided sexual interactions anyway, or at least lack the social skills to go out, meet people, and get laid. So with no cause or effect of porn and loneliness in this regard, but that does increase the correlation. That's a complicated story. Typically, anti-porn activists are highly uninterested in complicated stories. Sometimes complicated stories are really what's going on. And mind you, anti-porn activists have plenty of great points to make, but they usually like to make a lot of points that are not so great on top of their great points that they're making. And very few people will counter them, but your boy's on the case somehow for some goddamn reason, just to justify my own porn addiction, of course. All right. So next, we're going to go one by one in all of our top 8 downsides of porn. And we're going to talk about how to understand and ameliorate potentially the downsides of porn as described. We're going to try to do 3 things for each one of these. 1, we're going to apply some skepticism to the directionality of causation. 2 is we're going to try to establish the most likely error of causation. It's presumptive, but it's the best we currently have. And I could be wrong about all these, but this is all just food for thought. So at the very least, one does not simply is what I'm trying to say here. And 3, talk about how to ameliorate the downsides in question if and when they are at risk to you. So if you're in the situation where you really are getting these downsides, I have some tips about how maybe to reduce the downside. So also a helpful video potentially. All right, number 1, decreased sexual satisfaction. In other words, men who frequently use pornography may experience lower sexual satisfaction, both personally and in their relationships. Is this because of porn's underlying effect on expectations in sex? Maybe. Or is it more because of 2 complementary variables? First, If the sex you're getting sucks already, you might use porn to supplement it. Like if someone's not having a great sexual experience with a long-term partner, which is the part there that says experience lower sexual satisfaction, they might use porn to compensate. And then it looks like porn is causing it, but the arrow of causation is actually directly reversed. On the other side, part 2 here is if you nut like 2 times a week with real sex, but without porn, each time is fucking pretty zany. You got a whole lot of shit saved up there and it feels really interesting. But if you add in 4 times a week jerking on top of that to porn, it's simply just physiology. It's simple physiology that the sexual satisfaction of those 2 times you're getting it with a real person are going to decline. There's only so much you can squeeze out of there. You guys know what I'm talking about. Ejaculate volume declines concomitantly too. By the way, it's not rocket science. I don't know which one of these is true, but at least consider the idea that it's not just porn causing these bad things, and that the story for the bad things causing an increase in porn use is at least as convincing, in my opinion. And truthfully, in my opinion, considerably more convincing. Because people talk about like, oh, porn like changes people's expectations with sex. Does it? I don't know. So my advice on this, if you're having a problem with it, is if you're gearing up to have some real sex pretty soon, stop jerking off for a few days before. That will make the sex go much better. If you have regular sex with a partner, make sure they're satisfied. And if you want that sex to feel better, jerk off less, especially the day before or 2 days before. So if you really like to have fun weekends with your girlfriend, just stop jerking off Wednesday or Thursday. For the love of fucking God, a lot of this is not that complicated. Number 2, impaired sexual functioning. Higher rates of porn use are associated with issues like erectile dysfunction and decreased sexual performance. I had a lot of ideas on this. First, is it because porn increases the probability of sexual dysfunction and performance? Or is it more because people with erectile dysfunction and low performance are kind of reticent to embarrass themselves with a real person and thus lean on porn more? Like if you're trying to get out there and fuck real people, but you have erectile dysfunction, this shit can be fucking embarrassing. And you're like, dude, fuck that. If I have a half-masty when I'm fucking jerking, nobody cares. But I have a half-mast when I'm with a real girl, man, that shit is fucking, fuck that. I'm just not going to do it. And on the margins, I'm just going to use porn more. Never can tell which one it is. Could be a combination. But at the very least, it's not just straightforward that porn does this and that's it. How porn causes erectile dysfunction directly is, well, here's the thing. If you jerk off all the goddamn time, you know, the boner power you're able to generate when you get with a real girl is going to be lower because you just jerked off like 7 times in the fucking last 3 days. So yeah, there's a cause of how porn does it, but it's also a profoundly simple solution. Stop jacking off in the multiple days before you're with a real human and kind of problem solved, potentially. How do you ameliorate this situation if this is happening to you? If you're only used to getting hard and nutting by masturbation, you might have a tough time transitioning to another person getting you hard and nutting. It's kind of weird. There's another person in the room. You can be a little bit nervous, etc., and that does no good for your being hard or your nutting. But also, on the other end, if you never jerk off and build up sexual endurance and kind of finishing strategies like timing your shit, you might be a 2-pump chump. So the idea isn't just to stop using porn and fix all your problems. The idea could be strategically using porn in order to work up a fucking endurance. It's like, I'm sure you guys have had both experiences, maybe not in your lives or heard about, like, you know, some guys get in there, a real girl, and they're, oh, shit, 2 seconds, that's all I got. But if you've been at it for a while, she's like, puts her hand on your shit, and she's like, do you love this? And you're like, you know, I typically generate about 500 times more friction, but you're doing great. And so she's going to have to work at getting you off, which might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing. It's all dependent on extremes. If you're a 2-pump chump, you need more porn to fucking train yourself to be better, to train yourself to have more endurance. If you're a person that like, basically only porn in your own hand can get you off and everyone else is not fit for purpose, you probably need less porn and to get used to real people again. So my best ideas here are masturbate regularly if you need it to stay sane. Something that anti-porn advocates seem to forget is that if dudes stop masturbating, the rate of violent crime and sexual crime is going to skyrocket because fucking let's be real. But also keep sexual relations continuous and strong with your partner, communicate a lot, and learn to reduce the anxiety of performing in the bedroom. Just accept when you're hooking up with a girl, you're going to be soft and pathetic and you're going to cry a lot. Just accept it. That's what's going to happen. You're good with it. You go in there, you're not nervous anymore because you're already going to suck. And then, hey, you don't suck. It's great. Tons of other strategies, but I'm not talking about, which I'm not qualified for that shit. Fuck if I know what's going on. There are ways to work around this. There's all this sex therapy and stuff to it. Some of it works. Number 3. Some studies suggest that problematic porn use is associated with greater feelings of loneliness and isolation. This is an interesting one. So does porn cause a loneliness? Like what mechanism? Or do lonely people usually attract fewer real sex partners, but still have sexual needs? And that's where porn fills the gap? That seems more reasonable to me. Like, if you look like Fabio or some beautiful, gorgeous man, you have an average sex drive, you don't really need a whole lot of porn. Shoot with bitches all the time. You get porn in real life. But if you look like fucking Quasimodo, you still have a sex drive. That's the real uncomfortable truth. You guys know what's real fucked up? Please, God, don't get us canceled for this, but like mentally challenged folks a lot of times also have legit sex drives. It's fucking strange to think about, but it's true. And so what you gonna do about it? You look like Quasimodo. You ain't out there getting laid. For sure. Not for sure. Maybe you got billions of dollars in a fucking game stack taller than your head. Maybe. But it's less likely. And so like you still have the same fucking sex drive as Fabio. What you gonna do to fill the gap? Of course you're gonna jerk off more. The other direction is like, somehow use a lot of porn and increase feelings of loneliness. There are plausible mechanisms for that, but it strains the imagination just considerably more. So my advice to folks struggling with this is you need to take charge of your own social interaction throughput, how much social interaction you're getting. If you want to hang out with more humans and potentially fuck some of them, you have to make it a priority to get out there and get it out. Consensually, with respect, all that stuff, of course. If you notice that porn is your crutch for real social interaction, it's time to get out there. Very straightforward. Number 4, relationship conflicts. So it says increased porn use can lead to conflicts within relationships, particularly concerning differing views on pornography consumption. Same 3 questions. First, does porn inherently cause jealousy and conflict in relationships? Maybe. Or are the kind of people, I'd say pretty rare ones in my experience, that have problems with porn their partner uses also kind of fucking nuts? No offense. Next, she'll tell you you're not allowed to fantasize about imaginary people in your own head when you're in the shower. It gets kind of fucking weird. So the what to do about this if you have this problem, this might be some of my biggest real world advice to you guys in this whole video. Your long-term partners, however many of them you end up having in life, must be okay with your porn use, whatever it is. If it's proximately leading the sex between you to be worse, you might have to reduce your porn intake to make the sex better. On the other hand, if your partner is just uncomfortable with the idea that you jerk off to other women, whether they're in your head and totally imaginary, in your head and people you knew in real life or celebrities, or just on a porn screen and, on your laptop, if your partner is uncomfortable with the idea that you do that, they either need to sort themselves out or you need to leave the relationship. Because if you can get jealous over a video clip, how a real female coworker is smiling at you on your way out of the office lead this person to behave? And what about friends that happen to be people that are generally attractive? I mean, my God. Guys, if I teach you nothing else on this channel at all, run from jealous bitches. Run. Run. It's not worth it. Scott, the video guy, you got anything to say on that? Run, bro. So when, like, I've known people who are like, oh, my partner's not comfortable with me, like, using porn. I'm like, run. It's time to run, bro. Or you're using too much porn. It's time to talk it out. But if you're using a reasonable amount of porn, if it's not affecting your sex life with them, they just don't like the idea of you doing it. This is not a tenable position to hold as an adult. And hey, maybe it is, just not with you around. Let some other dude fall on that fucking sword. That's all I got to say. Number 5, reduced romantic commitment. This is a doozy. Men engaging in problematic porn use may show weakened commitment to their romantic partners. Question, is it because porn decreases commitment via exposure to other digital people? Somehow you're unable to have romantic connection with your significant other, or reduces because you're like more connected with the porn stars? Again, this is strains credulity. Or is it that horny ass dudes that need a lot of variety both jerk off to loads of porn and also just generally don't tend to develop as deep of romantic commitments with real humans either, preferring to play the field more? Or another one is like, if you're with someone and your romantic connection isn't that strong to begin with, you might be using more porn, which in the correlation will be like, oh, see, porn causes the lower romantic commitment. Like, no, it's the other way around. I'm not even that close to this person. The sex isn't that great. It's not really emotional. So like, I use much more porn than fucking them because like, it's just more or less the same thing. They're just another kind of porn to me. Which one is it? Who knows? But I kind of suspect I'll put it this way. The idea that you would reduce your commitment to a real human because you're like romantically into porn stars is fucking insane. To me. To you, it might make some sense. If it does, don't comment. I don't want to hear about it. I'm kidding. Sort of. I think a lot of these things are kind of said by females, anti-porn female advocates, because females often have this idea that you'll notice that for females, sex and romance go just insanely hand in hand. If the fraction of females, and this is kind of the great lie of one of the waves of feminism, is the second wave maybe, is that females are just as gung-ho about hookup culture as males. That's off by a factor of 10. Like 10 times fewer women are into just random hookups versus men. Women, to them, you have sex with somebody, there's an emotional connection, a romantic connection there. For guys, for a lot of guys, that's true. But for way more guys, there's 2 different kinds of connection you can have with a woman, other than friends and shit. One is you're just Friday night, bitch. Whether you're on a porn screen or in my fucking house before I call you a fucking Uber, it's just bang, bang, bang. And then do you want like a soda or something? Bye. No love. I'm not thinking about you extra. It's just A and B. Fucking Jenga block. Connect the dots. That's all it is. And another kind of interaction, which is deeply romantic and deeply connecting, but the fraction of guys that will do that second type of deep romantic connection with a porn screen is like insanely small. I don't even know if it happens. I'm sure it happens. People write porn stars letters and stuff. So this is like 1 out of 10,000 or 1 out of 1,000 guys. It is not a ubiquitous behavior. So TLDR, for me personally, at least, if you're interested in hearing this kind of bullshit come out of my mouth, porn is great for commitment-free variety. A lot of us want a bunch of different shit. Like, what is it? Like, I've met a lot of beautiful women, but I've never met one so beautiful to like make me give away all the rest. That sort of idea. A lot of dudes are just pre-programmed to be into strange fucking pussy, bro. That's just what it is. And so if you use porn, you get all that fucking strange shit right out and you'd hurt no one. You have to fucking not arrange some kind of open relationship with your partner. You still get to have a partner. You still get to have that deep romantic connection and you get the porn to fucking sublimate that shit away. At no point am I personally getting romantic feelings for porn. Holy shit. And I don't make you feel bad if you do. If you do, that's real and that's something you got to contend with. But it's just really, really uncommon. And by jerking away the variety lust instead of pretending I don't have it, which is a real, real terrible idea, my commitment to my partner becomes easier and not harder. So in a world in which I don't have porn, I just have my partner, like, dope, whatever, but like, fuck, man, fuck. I just want some variety every now and again. God damn it. But in a world in which I have porn, I get all the variety and I just close the screen after. No phone calls, no STD tests. Oh, I thought you loved me. None of that shit. Kind of fucking sweet. That's how most people live their lives. The anti-porn people will tell you that's all a myth. And it's just not. It's the opposite. For you, in your own life, make sure that you are either committed to your partner or break up with them. Cheating is lame as fuck. I've done bad in this world. I ain't perfect. But it's bad. It's not something you want to get into. If porn hurts your commitment feelings to someone, use it less if you want to be committed to them. But if it helps kind of sublimate the hunger for strange, highly reconsider quitting it when in a monogamous relationship. Because porn in a monogamous relationship, the monogamous takes care of that deep romance shit. The porn takes care of that strange shit. It's a fucking winning strategy for a lot of people. That's how it works. Now, for people that don't do that, a lot of them are like, romantic shit with my wife, essentially porn in real life with other fucking women. And if you're like Snoop Dogg, his wife's cool with it. If you're like almost all other people, that's what you get stabbed for. So don't do stupid shit like that. Number 6, negative self-perception. This is especially interesting to me. So the claim here is that frequent use of pornography could correlate to negative self-perception and body image issues. Oh boy. Body image. We're back in my world. Fitness. Yahoo. So does porn cause worse body image via comparison to porn stars? Maybe. Or do people with bad body image have some combination of less physical attractiveness, like they actually have not so great bodies? And a combination of that and less confidence, in part because they know they have not such a great body? Then that gets them laid less, and thus they rely on porn to fill the gap? To me, that sounds much more convincing than the alternative. So here's the thing to expand on that first point of does porn cause worse body image via comparison to porn stars? This is typically an interesting bait and switch tactic, which they'll say this, and then people are like, for guys? No, it's for females. So females that look at porn, and then they don't look like a porn star, so they feel bad about themselves. Like, oh, I thought we were talking about like guys getting a bad deal in porn. Is female porn use even that high? No, by the way, it's way lower than for guys. Little bait and switch going on. So I'll put it this way. Other than like that Johnny Sins dude, Scott, is Johnny Sins dude the guy that's really ripped? You wouldn't even know something like that.
No, he's before my generation.
Scott the video guy gets it only in real life. Some of us don't need porn. Johnny Sins is, I think, the guy who's like bald and kind of like fucking really jacked and ripped. Other than him, most male porn stars, from my extensive experience with porn, are a couple of things. Not in crazy shape. They're just not. They're like regular dudes, if that. Ron Jeremy, like, it's a fucking grandfather. It's disgusting. I still have no idea. I don't even want to talk. It's disgusting me to talk about it. No offense, Ron. Although I heard he's a scumbag in real life, so fuck you, Ron. Some combination of not in crazy shape, or they're just out of the frame. And here's the thing. If the guy in porn makes you feel less than, because he's the man and you're not, he has a better body or whatever, realize that in real life, and I want to put this as easily as I can, as gently as I can, many of these guys are drug addicts with nothing and no one in real life. Would it surprise you? These are not the people to get jealous of. Now, it's not all of them. No offense to the dope ones. You guys are cool. Tons of porn stars are great people. But a lot of them, man, this is not the person to be jealous of. You're getting jealous of a porn star. This is like getting jealous of the guy that puts on the Mickey Mouse suit to work at Disney World. That's not the person to be jealous of. He's not really Mickey Mouse. He might not be having the greatest time in the world. Another thing to realize if you're in this position is that you can improve both your body image and the actual shape of your body. Kind of have a whole mega channel about that in the fitness space. Just Google my name and that's what comes up. There's a real tractable problem. And not to put too fine a point on it, but if you're looking at other dudes and porn a lot, man, I got news for you. That means you're gay, which is cool. Yeah, the gays have all of their own porn, and I hear it's great. Dope. But this is one of these things where the body image stuff is just an argument that someone says it. I mean, like if they say it, imagine it's like Lego pieces vomited out as ideas. And then you're trying to kind of like get the Lego pieces, kind of make something that makes sense out of it. It's just nothing makes sense. So like, is it guys with their body image? Do guys look at male porn stars a lot? Do they even compare them? It all just starts falling down kind of a probability staircase of like, we're getting to basically nothing here. So that's my take on the matter. Number 7, mood disorders. The claim here is problematic porn use has been linked to higher instances of mood disorders, including depression and anxiety. So questions here is, does porn in increased uses cause depression and or anxiety to go up? Maybe. Or do higher levels of depression and anxiety lead to higher uses of porn? Probably not depression. It's certainly not major depression. Anxiety, maybe. Or both depression and anxiety reduce the probability that you're having real sex, highly likely, and thus I keep saying form, and thus porn fills the gap here? Maybe. What I tend to notice, my take on this is sometimes anxious people use porn as an anxiolytic, like jerking off. Like it really does reduce anxiety proximately. But because they use it so much, the wanting effect to reduce the anxiety becomes higher than the enjoying effect of the jerking off. And basically porn use reduces their average daily affect. Like all the daily affect you have that's positive basically gets used up in porn. And then at the end of the day, you're just kind of empty and you have not a whole lot going on. That's definitely a possibility. If you notice in yourself, in your own experience, that higher porn use increases anxiety and depression symptoms for you and decreases your positive affect, highly consider reducing your use of it and seeing how you feel. For sure. Because remember, you're in charge. No one's coming to help you. If you can't close the laptop for yourself, you need to get into a support group. It's a big deal. And for the record, I'm sure 3 people will get to this part of the video, but they are people with real legit addictions to porn and to sex and a bunch of stuff. These are people that need help. This is a serious problem for them. I'm just here to say that it's a serious problem for a very small fraction of men, and thus any grand gestures to ban or reduce the prevalence of porn, which I'll get to in a second, are probably like using a hammer this big to hit a nail this big, and there's circuit boards all around it. Not well thought through. Lastly, social withdrawal. In some cases, which is already, if it's phrased like that, it almost never happens, excessive pornography use can correlate with social withdrawal or reduce social activity. Does porn cause social withdrawal and reduce social activity, or do socially withdrawn people need to fill the sexual desire gap that's still there somehow and thus lean more on porn? I don't know about you guys, color me crazy, but that second option sounds a lot more likely than the first. My take on this is people for whom porn alone measurably increases social withdrawal seem rare. But on the margins, too much porn might make you skip out on social events and trying to get laid. So in that case, reducing porn to boost your motivation to go out might be an idea if you'd like to try. All right. So maybe we dispel some myths. Maybe we just at least got you guys thinking. Next, let's talk about what healthy porn use could look like. Now, I'm going to skip the Nina Hartley-esque porn can help your sexual performance and relationship dynamics talk. I've never used it like that. I'm totally unqualified to speak on that. And also, we're not going to talk about it here because most porn controversies just never broach that topic at all. Most discussions don't broach that controversy, another better way to put it. But it has to be stated there's at least something there of benefit to some people. So considering porn is like, well, use as little of as you can because it's all bad, but some people need it. So it's like alcohol, it turns out like the less of it you have, the better. But even alcohol, like 2 glasses of wine or a glass of wine a night is actually better for many people statistically than not having any. And so porn is probably more like that, some porn, especially in some situations, can be literally therapeutic. Now, I know basically almost nothing about that, so I'll just leave it here. But any balanced discussion of porn, like this is hopefully going to be, at least has to mention that some side effect positives do in fact exist. All right. Here's my tips for getting the most upsides and least downsides from porn. I never thought I would say that on live public television, but here we go. How many tips do I have here? 6 tips. Only one tip we really care about. Am I right, fellas? Number 1, I would say it's probably a good idea in most cases to only look at porn to masturbate. This preserves the novelty, which is a big deal in sexual arousal. I think browsing to load up porn tabs is cool, but looking at porn randomly during the day, especially for long streaks without jerking off, can at least be a massive waste of time and can get your brain into that habit of emphasizing seeking over enjoying, which just might not be a great habit to get into because it might habituate you to be a little bit anxious and not really able to enjoy the things around you a ton. Number 2, only use porn when you think it's going to make you nut hard and feel amazing. Versus you kind of want to jack off, but you honestly think it won't even feel that great. I have a rule with myself that I follow most of the time. I was like, is it time to jack off? I was like, am I going to really like it? If the answer is like, I could take it or leave it, that's 15 to 20 minutes of my day I just saved. Maybe I'll just go to sleep. Maybe I'll read a book. But if I'm like, fuck yeah, this shit's happening, then kudos. If it's just something you use to spend time, that's probably not the best way to use it because then it's just not that fun. Number 3, you have to try to balance porn with real life sexual relations. First, in most people, this tends to auto balance because as of yet, no porn can replace the real thing. I think at some point, most guys will go get the real thing when no porn in the world can quench your lust for real female meat. Back in my 20s, I had zero game. I had nothing going for me. Still 5'6", but much fatter. No money, none of that. No one knew who I was. And like, yeah, there was absolutely times where I'd go a considerable amount of time without getting fucking laid by a real human. Look, I had access to all the porn I wanted. Bro, after some point, you're like, dude, no, I need it real. And you go get it. You get self-effacing, you embarrass yourself, you get denied by a bunch of people. Eventually you get some human being to do it with, and you're like, this is a categorical difference of interaction. Now, for folks that are less social, that need a push, putting the porn down for a few days can definitely, before going out, kind of get you out there more and push you a little more. So that might be a good idea. So that was first. Second, a few days before you have guaranteed sex. This is modified based on sex drive. For some people, it's like a few hours because they're insane. For some people, it could be a week. A few days on average, in my experience. Stop jacking off for a few days before you're getting guaranteed sex so that the sex feels much better. So you get a much deeper sensation. Because I don't know about you guys, but after a few days of not doing shit down there, having some real sex, bro, the shit is like a fucking mind-body experience. Whereas like if you're just jerking off in the bathroom, you're like, people that are super, on a personal note, I have super sympathy with people who are addicted to porn or whatever, but I just can't imagine personally being addicted to porn because I jack off and I'm like, oh, sweet. All right, it's time to get the fuck out of here. I could see people, when people on the other hand, Scott the Video Guy, you ever have people talk about like, oh, I'm a sex addict. I'm like, motherfucker, we're all sex addicts. You have a bunch of fucking hot ass strippers in your fucking house and you're like, all right, I got to have sex with all of them all the time. But like, I'm a sex addict. Like, no, you're just a human being. So I get much more how you can be addicted to sex than addicted to porn, but you know, different strokes. And so you want to stop jacking off a couple days before sex so that sex feels better. You get a much deeper sensation. So that your partner feels desired and not underwhelmed. It's kind of dope when someone's really grabbing at you during sex. Like, God damn, this guy really wants it. This is hot. Versus like, meh, just like bust in her and just, yeah, it's good. It's good for me. Was it good for you? That's not that great. And here's a real big one, huge one. You have to invest in communicating, those weird accents, communicating with your partner about sex so that you both get more of what you like. This is massive. Remember, when you're in a long-term committed relationship, even a medium-term committed relationship, all the shit you do with your wife or husband or whoever the fuck's watching this channel, girlfriend, is a dope. And you just do it because it's mutually awesome for you and you're on a team together. When you're in the bedroom, there's really only one thing that has to happen. You're trying to both have as much fun as possible. Remember, sex that's not for procreation is exclusively to have a good time, period. And one person's idea of a good time may be just a little bit different than the others, but the other person doesn't know. So easy communication could be like, hey, you know what? That thing you do, that other thing, I love that other thing. This thing, I like it, but I don't like it as much. Any guy with remotely 2 brain cells is like, oh, so I'm going to do the thing she likes more. And all of a sudden, everyone's having a much better time. So don't just be silent and assume everyone's having a good time. You got to talk about the shit. Number 5, save your favorites or pay for your favorite kind of porn is my recommendation if you really have a problem with browsing and it's just taking up a ton of time. I hardly ever browse because your boy's got all the shit where he needs it. I'll say no more. I'm not going to give any website shit. Plus, I'm into weird shit. You wouldn't want to be in that shit anyway. Not too weird though, am I right? Never can tell. Scott the Video Guy knows what I'm into, so he's trying not to laugh out loud. But yeah, if you spend a lot of time tab scrolling, you're just fucking wasting your time. If it's something you really love to do, hey, listen, have at it. But a lot of times it's good to like know what you like and curate that shit. So you just save a lot of time. And I would also recommend it for almost everyone, try to step away from porn, even if you're a regular user, especially if you're a regular user, for like a week or two here and there. It's great during vacations and trips, during intense sexual relations with a new boo. Like you meet a new girl and for 1 week straight, you're like, basically your cock is broken. Hey, great time not to use porn. And another one for those of you who are in the fitness space is at the tail end of really hard hypocaloric diet and training phases, you don't even fucking want fucking anything. You don't even want porn. I had one situation where I was on a treadmill and there's a girl at the gym that was walking right in front of me. I was so dieted down to the bone. I was also on considerable amount of anti-estrogens, which really depress your sex drive. I remember looking at her body and I was like, oh, that is logically a very attractive body. And I felt nothing. You bet when I was going home, I wasn't jacking off at all. I was just like, I don't even know why people do it. So great time to get away from it, clears their mind a little bit, and could make it just that much easier. But in any case, it's good to step back away from it, reevaluate some shit. It's totally cool to come back, but it's good to have a washout period with kind of a lot of stuff you do in your life. All right. Second to last part of the talk here. The last part of the talk will be the future of porn. This part of the talk is going to be commenting on if it's a good idea and what might happen if we try to listen exclusively to the more psychotic anti-porn activists and make the consumption or creation of porn to some degree illegal. Because there are a lot of people, numerically, thank God not fractionally, that are in support of such policies. I'm going to contend today that this is something you do not want to happen. You do not want porn to be illegal. I'm going to show you guys a few downstream consequences that are very likely if this is something that happens. So generally prohibition, which this is a kind of factor of or a type of, works in only one of about 3 ways. There are 3 extremes of prohibition. The first approach, legally or legislatively, is to create mild disincentives that just create speed bumps and waste time and money, and almost no one's stopped by them, but it's just kind of annoying. So for example, in California in some parts, the regulations adding to the price of legal weed are so insane that people still sell weed illegally. Now everyone's still getting the weed they want. It's just annoying to have to deal with a fucking drug dealer again instead of just a corporate store. So it's just a nuisance. That's one approach. The second kind of approach is moderate disincentives. These tend to be legit laws that have some pretty decent punishments, but nothing crazy. Moderate disincentives tend to reduce overall use of whatever you're trying to prohibit by the least at-risk groups. The people who probably wouldn't use it anywhere, use it a little bit, but now they're like, it's just not worth it. But they create massive criminal underworlds every single fucking time to provide the most at-risk groups with their needs. Evidence? Drug laws in almost every nation. You put someone away for 2 years for drugs, that's just enough time to keep the real hardcore addicts coming back. They don't give a fuck. It's just enough to get the real good people that just generally tend to don't use drugs anyway or never have problems with them. They just don't use them. Like, I've never been into fucking coke or crazy stimulants or anything like that. But if I was a professionally successful person and I was like pretty legally aware and that like get caught with coke, I go to jail for 2 years. Fuck that. I'm not dealing with coke. You got a coke head who's addicted to this shit or likely to be addicted. 2 years in jail is so far away from their minds, it doesn't even matter. They're going to go get it, but they're going to get it from a nasty dealer who's going to fuck them in the ass and who's going to have the coke cut with some shit that could be dangerous. He's going to have a gun on him. It's going to be all this bad news. Literally the birth of criminal enterprises is caused by this kind of prohibition. The prohibition of alcohol in the United States. The prohibition of drugs in the United States. It just is open and shut. Lastly, there is a third way to do this. ultra high disincentives can nearly eliminate a problem at massive cost of liberty, of course. So, for example, in Singapore, almost no one uses illegal drugs because oftentimes the penalty for those is a literal death. Even hardcore addicts usually don't use it. You don't even get a chance to get hardcore addicts because all of them are like, fuck that, I'm not going to Singapore. That's definitely an option. It's a realistic option we have to consider. I'll get to applying these to porn in just a little bit. So how would this look like applied to porn? So prohibition in porn would potentially look like this. Mild disincentives, that first tier, would make porn harder to get, but very easy on the net balance still. Do you think that mild disincentives would prevent porn addicts from getting this shit? Will it stop at-risk, highly curious teens? Fuck no. These are the kind of people that like it better if it's mildly disincentivized, as they feel all seedy about it. I mean, fuck, man. In much of the Muslim world, you have to have a VPN to get porn. How many people get VPN porn in the Muslim world? Hundreds of millions. Not doing shit. Is just a nuisance. Sweet. And the people that are saved from porn are the people that just probably wouldn't be into it anyway. It's literally doing the most good for the people that need it the least. Number 2, moderate disincentives, like criminal charges for making, distributing, or even consuming porn, will give birth to underworld porn creation and distribution. Underworld, criminal porn creation and distribution. And that's very bad, and will put folks who like to jack off in jail. Prison, maybe. What you in here for, man? Fucking armed robbery. What about you, man? Fucking wet teens 5. Fucking, I know. The 4th one was so good. Seems absurd. I would say this middle option is the gnarliest double tap against the female. Porn stars are now way more likely to be victimized because by definition, they're criminals and have to work with criminals to get their porn made. And also the male user, because you're putting people in fucking jail for porn or giving them huge fines or whatever it is. I mean, in some sense, you can kind of begin to be more sure that the girl you're jacking off to is a literal sex slave. Fuck! Who wants this sort of thing? And even though you are a hardworking person who's super productive in society, never hurt anyone else, you're now a hardened criminal for wanking. Insane. This is something you want to do. This is some kind of agglomeration of laws you want to institute in a society. If you want a high probability as possible of making the problem as bad as you can. You want to turn porn into the drug war in 1980s America and Colombia? Have at it. This is what you need to do, is make porn really fucking illegal, but not so illegal that people are getting killed for it. Now, last thing. Ultra high disincentives, like 20 years in jail or the death penalty for creating porn, distributing porn, or even using porn, will nearly completely eliminate porn use, especially if you target the end user. Like someone says, look, like the FBI can get access to your computer anytime they want. If they see you streaming porn, which is a nominal task from an internet security perspective in most cases, you're doing time, 20 years in jail. Almost no one of the right mind will ever fucking stream shit ever again. But if we're willing to enforce a law like that, a system of laws like that against porn, why the fuck do we tolerate violent movies at all? I mean, violence is way worse than sex, right? I mean, everyone has to agree to that. Or why do we tolerate extreme left-wing or extreme right-view political documentary? I mean, these people are nuts. It's way worse for society to adopt a communist regime because so many people were convinced by a documentary. Way worse to get a fascist regime because people are convinced by documentaries. So if we're going to ban porn, but we got to start banning all kinds of other shit, if you guys get my drift. Like, if you think porn is bad, I'd love to hear what you think about violent video games and violent movies and how they're okay, seemingly. Now, a lot of these people are like super insane ban everything Karens that would be like, no, I also want to ban that shit too, which, okay, is at least internally consistent. But if we're willing to ban porn with this big of a hammer and maybe all the other things, we are headed really into totalitarian waters. I was born and lived in communist Russia. You do not want to be in those waters. Almost everyone who is able to get out of those countries runs like rats off a sinking fucking ship. And the only countries in the world that keep their citizens in, preventing them from leaving, are precisely these kinds of totalitarian places. Anytime you want to leave Denmark or the United States or Brazil, you just fucking go. You just go. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody comes looking for you. If you are at the fucking customs desk at the airport, actually, you don't even go through customs on the way out. You're at the TSA desk and they're like, oh, fuck, Scott, I just tried to come up with like where are you going? And you're like, I'm leaving forever and no one cares. But in America, nobody even asks you where you're going. They just don't, right? That's the kind of place you want to live in. Not a place that controls you so much you're trying to fucking leave and they keep you in. We put penalties like these, 20 years in jail, life in jail, murder by the state, capital punishment. We put these kind of penalties on extreme things like murder and extreme abuse and corruption because these things are really, really bad for society. Whereas in porn, the most scientifically based take is some small minority of folks might have a marginally hard time with this thing, which is true for everything else. For that, we smash our freedoms? Come on now. Come on now. One of the trippiest things to me is to see people with like liberty and freedom in their profiles. They're vehemently anti-porn and want it banned. I'm like, are you like the fucking, does that make any sense? No takers. All right. Super quick. The future of porn. Porn is attending to sexual desire. Sexual desire is one of the most powerful human drives of them all. I think I have them ranked pretty accurately here. The most proximate desire or most powerful desire humans can ever have is air hunger. If you start to not have air, you'll do anything to get it. You will claw through other people to get a fucking breath. The next one is thirst. You will ignore everything other than breathing to get a drop of water to drink when you're really, really thirsty. The next after is food. If you're hungry as fuck, promise you, from my bodybuilding competition experience, you're not interested in sex. Shelter is the next one, usually. But once your boy has food, shelter, and some air to breathe and some water to drink, sex, that's next. It's that high. It's top 5. After sex, ranked 6th is physical safety. Do you guys have a hard time believing that people often risk their physical safety to get laid? Come on now. It's obvious to horny dudes. Like, yeah, fuck, the safety is important, but that bitch fine as hell. I'm going to crawl in that motherfucker, hit her up, and then try to crawl out through the chimney. But her husband's going to come home, probably shoot me to death, but fuck it. She's hot. Men have reasoning like this all the time. So sex is ultra core, key, non-negotiable, insanely powerful, centrally organizing human drive. It's as basic as it gets. Rats have the same fucking sex drive basics in their brain that you do. So the incentives to deliver more desirable porn to people that are willing to pay for it are massive. Massive. Can you imagine going to a grocery store and being like, man, all these products for sale? Guy giving you a tour is like, yep. People want food like in this quantities? The guy giving a tour would be like, have you met human beings? They love food. I'm like, this much? Yes. So we're surprised that people like porn is crazy. People will, via either ad dollars, subscriptions, or direct contributions, that's for the website that can't be named, OF, pay literally billions for it. As of 2024, it's a $100 billion per year industry. Pretty trippy. I would not bet against it getting bigger. Why not? Why do I think porn industry is just going to get bigger and bigger? Competition in porn delivery, which is ruthless because nobody gives a fuck what website to use. Yeah, we say Pornhub now, but whatever, some other website might come up later and you're like, fuck that, Pornhub sucks, I'm onto this. There's nobody has loyalty to porn websites. That's insane. So competition is completely ruthless and basically a completely free market, which is great. That insane competition meets an obvious directionality of customer desires. Let me give you an example of an alternative. If you're a CEO at a toy company and your job is to make the next Christmas season's hot children's toy, you have a really difficult job because toys come and go in popularity. You never can tell. Like one year, a fucking Slinky that costs 3 cents to make is a global market killer. And the next year, it's like a animatronic teddy bear that recognizes your moods and sings to you at night. It costs $500. That's the thing. You never can tell, up and down. But if you're making porn, you know exactly what people want more of. I'll tell you, it's real simple. Future pornographers are like, write this down. Higher resolution, better audio. I never use audio in my porn because I don't want to hear that nasty nonsense, but you do you. More variety, which is, by the way, endless. The more, the better in almost every case. More customization. You only want redheads. Search redheads. And more immersion. At first, VR, which is already a thing. Later, it'll be VR with good haptics, so you can feel shit. That's a trip. And then increasingly fuller and fuller immersion VR. The tip of the spear in long-term porn trends, where this is all headed eventually, is that almost every porn user would like porn to be fully customizable, 100% immersive experience where you can't tell porn and real life banging apart, provided safely via some combination of VR and robotics, where the sexual acts are performed by a porn-optimized AI, which has seen every porn movie ever and deeply learned what it means to be a provision of sexual pleasure, and not only knows how to get you off better than any human ever, but the porn robot lady also learns what you like and don't like over time and iterates on that. It actually gets better at exactly what you like over time. This is the tip of the spear. This is the pinnacle. Having the ultimate sexual experience at your leisure anytime you want it. Fully immersive as if it's really happening. Now, we're early on the road to porn here, but it's already being ridden with so much porn being made and posted to various sites. Like, you get high def porn today for free. In 1992, you had to buy videotapes or something. And in 1962, you have a dirty magazine or something. And in 1882, you just had to when Marge was filming, when Marge was, tending to the cows, you're going to be like, oh, look at her. And then, I don't know. So it's exponentially increasing in quality and immersion. My prediction on the next big thing in porn, if you're curious about this sort of thing, again, this is fucking the last video I'm going to ever make about this. It just pisses me off that people haven't just said yes, this is how it is. The next evolution will be text to video AI porn creation. If you are awesome at open source large language models that are based in video, large pixel models, and you have access to huge databases of all the porn ever made or a huge fraction of it, if you can do this, you're sitting on $1 trillion idea. You just bring people to a site that says, hey, type in a description of what you want to see, type in the length, type in the sex acts, rendering, here's your customized porn movie. Unreal amounts of potential there. It is inevitable. It's just a matter of who does it first and then a matter of who does it better and better and better. And almost all the large porn sites with anyone remotely intelligent at the helm are going to have their own versions of this because they have their own deep proprietary content with the highest quality that they can mine. This is an interesting thing because this change will make billions of people no longer reliant on actual human porn stars because they won't be human. They'll be AI generated, and you won't be able to tell, by the way. Don't worry. Being a real human porn star will still be a thing if that's how you draw your money and sense of self, because being a real human is now going to be a massive fetish category because a lot of people like amateur shit and they like the real thing. So if you're worried about porn stars losing their jobs, I don't mean to laugh at that. Yeah, don't worry. There's not going to happen, right? But there's going to be this huge abundance of folks that can, because sometimes you don't know how these people are being treated or if they're drug problems and stuff. And you honestly don't want to support this. It's like an icky industry sometimes. AI-generated porn solves that completely. It's just all pixels, bro. There's nothing actually going on. It's exactly as bad morally as fantasizing your own head. It's just way better. This evolution will also allow for the creation of porn to come with zero risk of exploitation of real humans, which is amazing. Now, Lastly, in 10 to 15 years from now, late 2030s, my prediction is that most porn will be VR and robotics based or robotics based. It will look and feel increasingly and very similarly to real sex. And I do think this will turn the dating world completely upside down. One of the ways in which it will do so is an incredibly good way for both men and women who are in the real dating market. Women have a real gnarly thing, especially in the dating market. It's anytime they're on a date with a guy, they can't quite tell, at least for some time, if he actually wants to learn who they are and have some deep, meaningful connections, or if he's just there to get laid. When you can get laid in a fully immersive environment, and it's basically like the real thing, except it's exactly what you want, exactly when you want it, you're probably going to date several orders of magnitude less to just try to get laid out in the real world. By the way, zero risk of disease. I mean, no one's getting emotionally hurt. You don't have to fib to people. Oh, I really do like you, Susie. All of that is gone. So for women in the dating market, you thought you were in the market for your real deep value and qualities and not just your physical beauty? Good news. Time to test that hypothesis. And in many ways, that's going to be really, really awesome. But over time, we do have to ask the question, will guys and girls start having deeper relationships with their VR or robotic counterparts? This is a little bit less related to the porn side, but more related to the fact that all of us in 5 to 10 years, and definitely in 15, almost certainly in 15, we're going to have pretty intimate relationships with AI, which is going to be better at almost everything or everything than humans. It means it's a truer friend. It gives you better advice. It cares more about what happens to you than almost any friend you've ever had. Like really intense shit. It's funnier. And a lot of our relationships are increasingly going to be with cloud-based or robot embodied beings. And if you can have sexual relationships with them, which they're also going to be better at that, if you can have intimate sex with them because you're super best friends with them, they give a shit about you, you care about them, they have amazing personalities and they love yours, and now you're fucking banging them and they're the best at that too. Does that mean that what's that going to do for humanity? Very, very trippy question. I think that's mostly a great thing, but obviously some interesting downsides there. Maybe more on that later. So enough of the porn stuff, but what is the future of human to human and human to AI relationships? We can make some pretty confident predictions there just because of what AI is almost certainly going to become. And maybe we'll talk about that later. Guys, I feel gross. I'm going to go take a shower and not touch myself. See you next time.